Narrated by an elder of Andiru village. I have seen many things in my years, things that cannot be explained by mere words. Some I speak of freely, but others, like the story I'm about to tell you, are spoken only in whispers when the fire burns low and the night winds carry the voices of our ancestors. It happened in Ndiru village, a place where our people lived by the old ways, where justice was not written in books, but passed down through blood and honor. It was in the season when the rains had just begun to bless the earth, and the air was thick with the scent of wet soil and ripe fruit. The village was alive with laughter and the songs of women pounding millet. But beneath this harmony, an old debt was waiting to be repaid, a debt that no one had dared to claim until one fateful night. There was a man named Okoth, the village blacksmith, whose hammer sang against iron from dawn to dusk. He was a man of quiet strength, respected but feared, for his temper was like the fire of his forge, hot and unpredictable. But Okoth had a secret, one buried beneath the weight of time. Long ago in his youth, Okoth had killed a man, not in battle, not in self-defense, but in rage. The man, Odera, had insulted Okoth's father, and in the moments of madness, Okoth had struck him down with the same hammer he used to shape metal. The village elders, after much deliberation, had chosen to settle the matter in the old way, through blood debt. Odera's family had the right to demand justice, but in their mercy, they had given Okoth a choice. He would owe them a debt of blood, to be repaid when they saw fit. No one knew when or how, but Okoth had accepted, believing that the matter would fade with time. But blood, my children, is not so easily forgotten. One evening, as the village gathered under the great baobab tree for a festival, a stranger arrived. He was young, his skin dark like the river stones, his eyes sharp as a hunter's spear. He called himself Obuya, and though his face was unfamiliar, his name carried a whisper of something old, something tied to the past. He didn't come as a guest, nor did he seek shelter. He stood before the elders and spoke with the voice of a man carrying the weight of his ancestors. "I am the son of Odera," he said, and the crowd fell silent. Okoth, who had been watching from the edge of the gathering, did not move. But I saw the way his jaw clenched, the way his hands curled into fists. He knew, as did we all, that the debt had come to be paid. Obuya did not ask for silver or land. He asked for one thing alone: Okoth's firstborn son, Omolo, as compensation for his father's blood. A murmur of shock ran through the crowd. To take a man's son was the greatest of all punishments, for it meant not only losing an heir, but the breaking of a bloodline. Some of the elders argued that too much time had passed, that the spirits themselves had moved on. But Obuya was unmoved. "The debt of blood is eternal," he said, "and tonight it must be settled." Okoth had always been a man of pride, but at night I saw something else in his eyes: fear. His son, Omolo, was barely a man, strong in body, but still a boy in spirit. He had known nothing of his father's crime, and now he was to pay for it. The elders convened under the sacred tree, speaking in hushed tones. Some urged Okoth to fight, to deny the claim, but the old ways were clear: blood for blood, life for life. Okoth could refuse, but to do so would bring a curse upon his house, a shadow that would follow his descendants for generations. And so, when the elders called for his answer, Okoth bowed his head. "The debt is mine," he said, "but my son is innocent. If blood must be given, let it be my own." A great silence followed. No man had ever offered his own life in place of his son's, not in our village, not in the memory of any elder. The law did not forbid it. If Obuya accepted, the debt would be settled. If he refused, then the spirits themselves would judge. Obuya stood there for a long time, his face unreadable. Finally he nodded. "The debt shall be paid," he said. At dawn, the village gathered by the river, where debts of blood were settled. The water was still, as if even the river held its breath. Okot stood at the edge, his son watching with tear-filled eyes. Obuya stepped forward, carrying a dagger, one that had belonged to his father, the very man whose life had been taken so many years ago. He did not hesitate. With a swift motion, he cut Okot's palm, letting his blood drip into the river. "The spirits are witness," Obuya said. "The debt is repaid." As the first rays of sunlight touched the water, a great wind passed through the village, rustling the trees, lifting the dust. The elders murmured that it was the ancestors, finally appeased. Okot, weakened but alive, knelt before his son. "You are free," he whispered. "My sins will not be yours to bear." And so, the matter was settled, not by revenge, not by violence, but by the sacrifice of a father for his son. Years passed, and the story of Okot's sacrifice became a lesson told to every child of Ndirus. A lesson that honor is not in never making mistakes, but in owning them. The debts of blood cannot be ignored, but they can be repaid with dignity. And as for Obuya, he did not stay in the village. Once his father's debt was settled, he left as he had come, vanishing into the world beyond the hills. Some say he became a great warrior, others that he lived in peace. But whatever became of him, he left behind a truth that still lingers in our village. That the past is never truly buried. It waits, patient as the earth, until the day it is claimed. And so, my children, remember this. Your actions today may be the debt your children must one day pay. Let them be debts of honor, not of blood. This folktale embodies African storytelling traditions, oral history, moral lessons, and the spiritual connection between past and present. Let me know if you'd like any refinements or additional elements